Chapter 1. The Filthy Liar. The Filthy Liar was a place full of secrets. The walls whispered the wishes of the mercenaries that dwelled within them, and the tables talked of the town's latest gossip. It was a place for drunkards and thieves and soldiers to pour out their hearts and drown their sorrows. And it was here that Alistair now sat, fingers clutched around the stein of his piss-watery ale. The mercenary's eyes drifted towards the door as he took another sip of his tankard. He ignored the jeers and laughter that seemed to fill the room, the incessant chatter of the drunkards nearby as sharp and irritating as a thorn pricked in his side. 10 more minutes, he consoled himself silently. I'll give him 10 minutes, then I'll leave. But no sooner had he thought it than the door of the tavern opened. A silhouette of black filled the doorway, the dying rays of the sun lending light to the stranger's form. He wasn't an especially tall man, rather, he was broad of shoulder and stout of stature. The hem of his black cloak kissed the floor as he entered the room, a raised hood obscuring much of his face. But the mercenary didn't need to see the man's face to know who he was, or what it was he'd come for. Leaning back in his chair, Alistair waited for the cloaked man to approach. It didn't take the stranger long to find him. He moved through the room like a ghost, his movements swift and easy as he weaved between the round wooden tables and the chairs in his path.
Alistair, I presume,
he greeted in a gravelly voice, slipping the hood back from his face. His was a worn and weathered face, one with silvery scars that clipped his chin and dotted the spots of his brow just above his eyes. His skin was leathery, as if he'd spent too much time in the sun. His cheeks were sunken, despite his full figure, but it was his eyes that caught Alistair's attention most. They were the soft brown of tanned hide, and there was a sharpness to them that cut him to the quick, a sharpness that he was sure would flay him alive if he looked there too long. Alistair gave a curt nod, the dip of his chin, all the response the man needed before pulling the opposite chair from beneath the table and dropping into it with a groan.
The roads aren't what they used to be,
the stranger admitted, rubbing his brow wearily as he waved at the barkeeper.
There used to be an etiquette, an unspoken decorum to the road, not that you'd know by the present standard.
He shook his head, unfastening the delicate golden brooch that pinned his cloak around his neck. Alistair ran a finger absent-mindedly around the rim of his tankard, his stare piercing as he gazed at the older man. You didn't call me here to act as an escort, now did you, Oren? The other man barked a laugh.
Good gods, man, no. You're far too expensive for something so banal.
He appraised Alistair then, as if seeing him for the first time.
You've done your homework. I thought you might have. 'Tis the reason I was so keen to meet you, to hire you, if you're willing.
Alistair took a long drag from his tankard, biding his time before setting the cup back down. I'm willing to entertain your offer, he replied, nonplussed at the glint of desperation he saw in Audryn's eyes. I'm willing to hear why one of the chieftains of Morrigan is so intent on procuring my services, particularly when he has other men at his disposal.
Other men, yes,
Oren agreed, a sudden hardness to the set of his jaw.
But none so skilled in the world beyond our borders, and...
He glanced over his shoulder then, as if searching for those that might be listening. He leaned in close, lowering his voice conspiratorially.
I need someone that can be discreet, he confessed. A task I have for you. I don't understand the nature of it myself, Alistair. I only know that the men in my employ are not fit for such a thing.
Oren leaned back, and Alistair noticed the clammy paleness of the man's skin, and the bruising shadows that lingered beneath his eyes. He was troubled, panicked, on the verge of quiet hysteria. It was quite enough to pique Alistair's interest.
It's my daughter,
the chieftain explained, his words piercing the delicate silence.
She's been taken by something. I don't know what.
The weight of his words settled in Alistair's chest, heavy as a stone and equally as immovable.
Taken by something? How very odd. A creature, perhaps? Or perhaps something altogether more worrisome.
Still, it was tantalizing, the prospect of a new hunt. This was what he'd been born for, what he was made to do. It seemed only fitting that the opportunity should be placed at his feet. Pursing his lips, the mercenary settled deeper in his seat.
There's the matter of my fee.
Hope. It was hope that sparked to life in Oren's eyes when he looked at Alistair in that moment. A hope so strong and pure that the mercenary almost felt sorry for the man.
You would take on the task? Simple as that?
The chieftain asked, his brow furrowing.
You didn't ask a single question.
I didn't need to, Alistair replied. Any job that no other man can do is a job worth taking. For a considerable sum, of course. The corners of Oren's lips twitched in a smile.
Of course. I would expect nothing less.
Tell me all of it, the mercenary ordered, motioning to the barman for another drink.
Spare no detail, however small. It's imperative that you leave nothing out.
Chapter 2. Into the Woods. Osha was her name. Oren's daughter. Alistair pictured her face, cherubic and bright as the unfettered sun, the pale gleam of her skin like cream, her eyes the gold of wilted wheat. He had met her once, many moons ago. He hadn't recalled it that day in the tavern, when Oren first sought his aid, hadn't remembered her passing him on the street. But now, as he knelt in the grass at the edge of the forest, his fingers brushing against the concave print of a fawn's hoof, he could recall her face with perfect clarity.
Osha,
he whispered, lifting his eyes to the woods.
What sort of hell have you gotten mixed up in?
The woods did not answer. With a sigh, Alistair ran his finger around the edge of the print in the dirt, its shape unmistakable. Too deep for a fawn alone, but a fawn with a captive. Rising to his feet, Alistair hefted the back on his back a little higher. His fingers drummed against the hilt of the dagger bound at his side. The solid feel of it, a quiet comfort as he breached the tree line. The woods were a dangerous place, full of things far worse than a fawn on the hunt. There was old magic here, magic that sighed through the leaves and caressed the trees' gnarled trunks, magic that soaked into the earth and danced like mist upon the air. And that magic carried dark things, things that he dare not awaken, not if he could help it. He'd traced the tracks from Oren's front door, their marks faint and nearly unreadable. Their true form only became clear once he reached the forest edge, but by then Alistair was almost certain he knew what he was looking for. Fawns were known for their trickery and deceit, and for their covetous natures. Undoubtedly, one of their kind had spotted Osha and desired her for himself. Whether he wished to feast on her or make her his bride remained to be seen. Yet, fawns were notoriously private, which made hunting them all the more difficult. They scattered through the woods like weeds, hiding in thickets and dense brush, their figures indistinguishable from the bracken around them. He might have passed a dozen of them already, had he not been skilled enough to spot them from afar. A hush fell around him as he pushed deeper into the woods. It prickled along the skin of his arms and neck. A whisper of warning slithered down his spine. He had the distinct sense that something or someone was watching him, studying his every move. With a watchful eye he scanned the trees, searching for any sign that something was amiss. He kept his head bowed as he moved through the woods, for he knew what many others did not. He knew that the forest was alive. There was a spirit that dwelled within it, one uniquely different than many other spirits that lived among the trees. It was an entity unto itself, those woods. It demanded respect, reverence, and it would take what it wanted, whether he gave it willingly or not. It wasn't long before the tracks he followed disappeared entirely. Crouching, he scanned the earth as closely as he dared, the sun's light slowly fading as the day wore thin. Shadows stretched around him, and Alistair peered upward through the stretching branches and their canopy of green. It would be dark soon. The thought formed a tight knot of dread that settled beneath his ribs. If the forest was dangerous by day, by night, it was another beast entirely. Yet it seemed he had little choice in the matter. Every moment Osha spent in the hands of the fawn was another moment closer to an almost certain death. If he hoped to find her alive, he could not risk returning another day. Unsheathing the dagger from the belt at his hip, Alistair straightened and began to search for a clearing. It would be a long night in the forest, one full of horrors he did not wish to see. If he had to endure it, he would make every minute count.